Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this update, we are going to check out ICP's price chart and see what is going on in the short term. And I still believe, despite the recent move down, that in a lot of altcoins, including for that matter ICP as well, I think we are going to see some bounce back soon. But before we get into all that, my friends, we got some optimistic news. And in case you missed it, ProShares officially filed for something called ProShares CoinDesk Crypto 20 ETF, and this is basically a fund that is designed to track the top 20 digital assets by market cap. So instead of buying coins one by one, investors basically can just buy this ETF and get exposure to all 20 of them in one go. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really think they actually mean what they say, because this isn't actually an ETF focused on the top 20 digital assets by market cap. No, the projects that are in this group, some of them are actually within the top 20, but some of them absolutely are not. And I'm going to tell you in a bit what are those names. But before that, according to this tweet by Dominic Williams, ICP is also included in this index, which means if this ETF actually launches, ICP is going to become part of the basket that institutional investors might start buying into. And that, in my view, is quite a meaningful moment for internet computer. Why? Because this actually potentially opens doors to institutional exposures, because a lot of traditional investors cannot simply buy crypto on exchanges. Absolutely not. However, if this ETF gets approval, okay, they can buy it through their normal brokerage accounts, and ICP would be indirectly part of that flow of capital, which is awesome. Now, if this ETF is going to attract big money, okay, it could potentially also bring some liquidity benefits for ICP, meaning more consistent buy side activity and much better price stability over time. And I promise you, we are not going to see effects of this instantly, but it is, in my view, overall part of the long-term foundation for a stronger and a stronger market demand. Now, although I do believe that this is bullish news, but at the same time, it's very important to stay very much realistic in here, because this is still a filing, not an approval, meaning the SEC can actually delay, reject, or even ask for changes. So basically, nothing is guaranteed, at least yet. And even, let's say, okay, this is indeed going to go through. Okay, you want to know that inclusion doesn't automatically mean a flood of money into ICP. That's like a bit too optimistic in my view, and the fund will actually spread its weight across 20 different assets, and depending on ICP's size in that list, well, okay, the inflows might be a bit modest. And also there is the structure of the ETF to consider. You see, sometimes these funds actually get exposure through derivatives instead of holding tokens directly, which could delay or maybe even reduce the impact on the tokens market. Now, after saying all this, I guess the real question is this: what can we reasonably expect from all this situation? You see, in the short term, let's say over the next few months, this news could potentially bring more attention to ICP, especially from people who follow institutional products or maybe ETFs, and that might translate into maybe hopefully a bit more trading activity and maybe some positive price momentum, depending on how much this story exactly is going to spread. In the midterm, okay, if this ETF actually launches and starts pulling in real money, okay, that is where ICP could benefit from more stable and ongoing demand. And it is also opening doors to things like, for instance, maybe new listings, maybe custody support, or even, I don't know, maybe collaborations with institutional players who prefer dealing with assets that are part of regulated products. And in the long run, well, okay, if crypto ETFs are going to become one of the main gateways for traditional investors to enter the market, which, at least by the looks of it, I think we can safely assume we are indeed on that track, okay, then being inside that top 20 basket does actually give ICP a strong position, and it basically locks it into the same infrastructure where big institutional flows happen. But at the same time, you want to remember that the real key will still be how much value ICP creates through its tech, its ecosystem, and real on-chain usage. And honestly, in the long run, preferably, I actually want to see an ICP ETF by itself, not necessarily like a top 20 ETF, which ICP is included in it. That's not really ideal. I really like to see an ICP ETF. And I'll be honest, I think we actually deserve it. Since ICP is very important to note, it is providing a product for the people outside of the blockchain space, and Caffeine AI can be useful for anybody, not just some people who are interested in the blockchain technology. You can literally build a website in Caffeine AI and not necessarily know a whole lot about the blockchain and also crypto space, I would say in general, and you would be absolutely fine. So since we are providing a product for everybody, well, okay, why not make ICP also accessible to everybody, not to the people who are familiar with the crypto market? So to sum it up, I think this is clearly bullish news for ICP, but I'm gonna say right now, it's not going to act as a magic switch. No, it does improve visibility for sure. And this is, do not get me wrong, a very much important ingredient for long-term growth, but the actual impact does depend on the ETF approval, market sentiment, and what ICP keeps building on the tech side. And if you are following ICP, well, okay, this ETF story is definitely something to include in your overall thesis, but it should actually sit, in my view at least, again, you can have a different opinion, I absolutely respect it, but in my view, it should probably sit next to fundamentals like developer activity, network adoption, and use cases, not necessarily replace all of them. So overall, we definitely have bullish news in my view, and fundamental wise, yeah, I'm comfortable to argue that we are absolutely on the right track, but let's not get overwhelmingly excited. Now, having said all that, let's go on the live chart and see what is going on in like very, very short term. And if you remember, the last time that we talked about internet computer, we were right around this high, and the idea was that if we want to be bullish, then okay, since we are having a lot of overlapping of the waves in this phase up between our pullbacks, well, maybe our only option, if we want to be optimistic and we want to count impulses, is going to be having a series of 1-2s. And we specifically said two things. Number one, we specifically said our move up has to accelerate quite a bit, and we said under any kind of circumstances from these areas, we do not want to see a move down in ICP in order to take these lows down here about $3.01, because that is pretty much going to confirm that, yep, this is a correction structure on the upside and not an impulse, and our move down at that point is going to continue, and in it we are going to take the lowest line here as well, about, let's say, $2.88, and unfortunately the bearish count played out. And I'm actually now going to argue that, excuse me, let's just delete the waves. This can be maybe, okay, from, I don't know actually, maybe this point like an A, B, C in form of a running flat. This is absolutely a 5-wave up, do not get me wrong. And maybe, is this actually a 5-wave or not? I think you might be able to kind of sort of argue like this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you are not comfortable arguing this is a wedge structure, fair enough. Maybe consider the beginning of your running flat to be right in here, and this is absolutely a 5-wave up. So on a higher degree, overall, you are having a ABC running flat into B and another 5-wave into wave C. Now, the question is, what is happening right now? You see, it's very important to note that this move on the downside from this high to about this low, in my view at least, does look a lot like an ABC, generally a 3-wave movement and not a 5-wave. And that, my friends, opens the doors to two very important scenarios. Scenario number one suggests that maybe, let's just zoom out a bit more, on a higher degree, we have completed a correction structure in form of a WXY, a double zigzag, and we don't really need to visit the lows anymore. And from here, we can get a good move on the upside. Scenario number two suggests, okay, we are having a WXY potentially in form of a double zigzag, but the end of our wave X can be right in here. And at the moment, we are having the subwaves for, excuse me, there we go, an A, B, C, D, E, a triangle structure. Now, Here is a very important question. What needs to happen in here in order for us to talk about this triangle and then having a move down a bit more? Or maybe what needs to happen in here in order for us to talk bullish with more confidence and argue, you know what, this is our final low in ICP. First things first, let's talk about the bullish scenario, which I'm not really honestly sure is going to play out. You see, according to the bullish count, this can be maybe a wave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave. This initial move is also another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave on the upside. So I'm gonna say we can have, if you really want to be optimistic, a series of 1-2s. This is 1, this is 2, and what's next? Good move up into wave 3, 4, 5, and that can be on a higher degree into this wave 3 correction for 4, another move up into wave 5. In other words, in the short term in ICP, you want to see a rather strong move on the upside in order to, I'm gonna say, at least take this important high for the first target, about $3.2. If we get that, great sign. On the other hand though, in case that we are having a correction and that triangle specifically that we talked about earlier, well, okay, this is going to be, as opposed to a series of 1-2s, just a simple A, B, C zigzag. And pay attention, this is really the key part of today's update in terms of technical analysis. If we get like a bit more continuation of this move down in order to, I'm gonna say, take this important slow down here about $2.98. At that point, yeah, it is going to be confirmed that probably, I'm gonna say, for the next 48 to 72 hours in ICP, we are going to witness some more chopping around, and then we're gonna have yet another move on the downside. And believe it or not, when we get this face down, I am going to do some more DCA in order to get my average purchase as low as possible, because, well, I'll be honest, I do like ICP quite a bit, and in my view, caffeine AI is going to attract a fair amount of adoption. So if fundamental wise we are on the right track, and if I believe that there will be a period of time where altcoins are going to outperform BTC, then okay, considering all that, ICP in my view can be a great choice to consider if I want to buy some projects around the lows. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in internet computer. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.